Hey, I'm Austin with Training Tall, and I am 6'8". But Training Tall is all about giving you the tips and strategies to help you take your fitness and health above the average, no matter how tall you are. And today, it's time to put to the test the true loudness of rowing machines. And so in this video, we are going to measure the loudness of the Concept 2, the WaterRower, and the Hydrow to see how these machines compare. Because, in my review videos, I show how loud the machine sounds, but how loud is it actually, numerically? Now, sound is usually measured in decibels, and it's important to understand that decibels do not work on a linear scale. They work on a logarithmic scale. And essentially what that means is if you went from 70 decibels to 80 decibels, that's not a 14% increase in loudness. That's twice as loud. 80 decibels is twice as loud as 70 decibels are. I'm a math guy, I don't know grammar. And so when we're looking at the decibels graph of these machines, it's important to keep in mind that even though the differences might seem small, any change in decibel level is a significant change in how our hearing perceives it. Now, as far as measuring the sound goes, I downloaded an app that I found on the App Store that measures loudness. And after I downloaded it, I essentially set up my phone 5 feet away from where the rower was, and directly in line with where the noise would be coming from the machine. That way the distance, it's basically consistent across all the machines. So with that in mind, let's get right into it. Now with each of these machines, I did 2 different styles of rowing. I took 10 strokes at a moderate intensity that I tried to keep consistent between each machine at a pretty low stroke rate. And then after that, I followed that up with 10 strokes of maximum effort using full strokes. I wasn't going for a personal record or anything, but I went 10 strokes as hard as I could to try to make as much noise as possible. So I did that for all these machines. So with that, let's take a listen to the Hydrow, which uses electromagnetic resistance. Pretty interesting results from the Hydrow, which we'll talk about later, but for now let's get into how does the WaterRower sound, which just uses water resistance. The water sound. It's always so soothing, isn't it? All right, guys, the moment you've been waiting for, let's take a listen at how the Concept 2 sounds, which uses air resistance. All right, so now that we've listened to all 3 machines, let's kind of go over what the results show us. Now, what's nice about this app is that it plots out the decibels over time, and so I'll post that graph for each one, boop, right here, and we'll just get right into it, starting by talking about the Hydrow, where one of the most interesting aspects of this was if we take a look at the first 10 strokes, the moderate intensity strokes at a low stroke rate, we can actually see that these strokes actually produced a higher decibels reading than the more intense, like max effort strokes that I gave at the end. And while this doesn't numerically tell me the average decibels, we can see that for those first 10 moderate strokes, that the average is around 68, 67 decibels or so. And then as we moved into the max effort 10 strokes, we can see that the average decibels drops down more to like 63, 64. So what's interesting is that the harder you row, the less sound the electromagnetic resistance creates, which is pretty crazy, especially when we take a look at the next two machines. Now, it's important to consider then that my moderate effort, with rowing, we all know that everyone produces a different amount of power depending on your age, your height, your experience level, etc. And so my moderate effort level produced this amount of decibels, but someone else's, if it's slower than mine, for instance, whatever their rowing intensity might be, it could be a bit louder. So that's something to consider. Next up, let's take a look at the WaterRower results. And if we scroll in at those first initial 10 moderate strokes, we can see here that, wow, this was actually significantly less loud than the Hydrow was, with the average being about 62 to 63 decibels. As we move into the 10-stroke maximal effort, this machine gets considerably louder, with the average being more around the high 60s, 67, 68, 69 decibels, which is what you would expect from a water resistance. You start splashing around more, it's gonna make more sound. But overall, significantly less loud than the Hydrow was. And finally, let's take a look at the Concept 2 results. And was this gonna really surprise anyone? The Concept 2 is freaking loud. We can see that the moderate effort strokes were creating around 70 decibels on average. And when we take a look at the 10-stroke max effort strokes, we can see those decibels go up quite a bit, with the average being around 72, 73, 74 decibels, which if we go back and think about how our decibel scale works, it's not linear, it's logarithmic, which means that any change, any increase creates a significantly louder noise. So what does all this tell us? It tells us that WaterRower is going to be your quietest rowing machine option, and that the Concept 2 is probably always and forever going to be the loudest option. And I've talked about all the benefits of the Concept 2 machine before, and it's one big con really being that it's just really freaking loud. And if you're in an apartment setting or in any setting where you want to be conscious of the noise you create, Concept 2 is going to be loud. Now, the Hydrow we saw was kind of in between, and from a personal experience, someone who lives in an apartment with surrounding neighbors and who's been using the Hydrow for a while now, even though it was louder than the WaterRower, it's not nearly as loud as the Concept 2 is, and it's not loud enough to bother the surrounding neighbors. So there you have it, guys, a numerical comparison of essentially what I would consider the top 3 rowing machines out there right now. And I hope that you found this at least somewhat interesting, even if it's not necessarily, we're not all decibel masters or anything like that, but hopefully this could give you a better idea of how these machines compare to each other and just help you expand your rowing knowledge in general. And remember, if you're interested in coaching with me, where I can review your form, you and me can work one-on-one to review your form and help you become a better rower, you should totally join my rowing coaching program, Row 20. It kicks off on the first Monday of every month. Sign-ups for that are on my website, trainingtall.net. There you can also find eBooks, rowing training plans, a bit of a cheaper option there. And also my subscription platform, which is about on-demand workouts with new mobility routines every day, and hundreds of workouts up there already with new ones added each and every week. So we've got all that and more over at trainingtall.net. I want to thank you so much for watching the video. Please let me know what you think, what you want to see from me next, and leave a like if you liked it, and leave a dislike if you hated it. And I will see you guys in the next video.